This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. I can hear myself in someone else's. Okay.
Good. Well, I'll go ahead and take it away. We want to cover a few things that will hopefully help each of you with the next assignment. Well, the next couple of assignments. You've got one that's due tonight. So if you haven't submitted already, remember.
Hold on. Just is it me, just me, or is it everyone else? Tom, you're like totally out of sync. It's like you're
totally out of sync.
no, now there you go. Now it's better. You were talking, but your lips weren't moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good now.
All right. So getting you ready for your next assignments, 11:59 tonight, you've got one due, and then you get a breather. You've had these 3 rapid fire ones, right? And we're going to give you a little breather. So you'll have a little bit of time to get into assignment number 4 before it's due next week. Before you head off for spring break. So don't forget to do that before you leave for spring break. If you're bugging out of town early, get that assignment submitted. Also need to let you guys know that next week, David and I both will be out of commission. So if you have questions, get those fired off to us this week. I'm actually going to be having surgery on Tuesday next week, so I'm going to be out of the picture. I'm going to be down. I'm out. Hopefully not too long, but for a little while. David is going out of town for a conference, so he'll at least be vertical most of the time, but he's got a pretty packed schedule at the conference too. So we want to help you out as much as possible, but we've got some things going on in other aspects of our lives that are going to make that difficult. So look at the assignments early. Even if you don't do the assignments, look at them. And if you have questions, then fire off those questions before we're out of the picture for a few days.
Yeah, and just so you know, while I'm at my conference and Tom is out of commission, Andrew Smith and Ian Punnett, they've taught the Writing Academy before, so they're going to help us out with scoring your assignments. Okay.
Yeah. So you might see a couple other names on your grading for your assignments, but they're all very competent people, well experienced in teaching this class, so don't worry about that too much.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Should we get into things, David?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
First, I want to just give an early chance for anyone to ask some questions that they might have. Anything coming up? Oh, there it comes in. Anna's coming in. Does anyone have any preliminary questions or?
No.
Oh.
Oh, I think we lost somebody.
Okay. All right, good. So one of the things that one of the assignments that you have coming up has to do with clear writing. There's a voice project too, but then there's also like how to write clearly and concisely. And I'm going to share with you some materials that I actually teach in my MC 200 class, and I'll be actually teaching the whole thing over at my conference in New York next week. But I'm going to share my screen with you, okay, and talk about some of these things. And I'm going to get into the slideshow. I get slideshow mode here. I'm not going to go through the entire slideshow. Okay, just kind of through a few things that I think that will be very useful for you to work with. One of the, especially in this past project, the issues that has come up in the last one, it's worded in your assignment as no padding. Okay, meaning make every word count. And I started to address that a little bit last time we had our Zoom session, but I want to give you some examples of exactly what we're talking about and how you can make it work for yourself. Okay, so we're going to talk about reducing wordiness and writing the active voice. And I'm going to, again, just kind of get right into the issue and I'm not going to go through every single slide. But, readers are busy people. And of course, when you're writing something, you want to feel as if your voice is being heard. You want someone to read your message. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? And anytime for those of you who especially who are in communications fields, writing concisely, as I said in the last Zoom session, is a critical skill to have. So here's the basic. Has anyone here ever bought like a can of frozen orange juice or a can of frozen lemonade, from Concentrate? Raise your hand so I can see if you have done it. Okay, good. And so you read the can, and what does it tell you to do? What are the instructions? What do you got to do?
Add water.
Yep, exactly. You got to add water. And what happens if you add too much water?
I don't know. I've never added too much water.
I mean, right. So if it tells you to add, 3 cans of that water, and let's say you add 5 cans, what happens to the lemonade or to the juice? Anybody?
It doesn't taste the same.
Right.
Like it just water.
Exactly. You start to water it down. Okay, it gets diluted. All right. And writing is no different. Okay, it's pretty much the same way. Here's something that's important to remember. It's very helpful to remember, and that the average reader comprehends blocks of words. They comprehend meaning in blocks of 15 words at a time. Okay, on average. And if you use more than 15 words to get a point across, you're starting to dilute your message. I'm not saying sentences have to be 15 words, but when you're putting sentences and thoughts together, it's really helpful to understand that the more words you use to get a single point across, the less impact it's going to have, and the more work your reader is going to have to do. So let me show you what we're talking about here. Right. Here's a sentence. Okay. And I'm going to ask Ashley to read it for us. You got it. Yeah.
There was an armed gunman who robbed a man at gunpoint while he was walking down Vine Street Tuesday night, police said.
Okay, yeah. So here we have this sentence, and it's 22 words. All right. And let's say, okay, I'm a reporter and I'm a writer, and I want to help my reader to understand, why this happened. Well, in order for me to do that, I've got to add more words to this sentence. So we're going to do that. Now I've got, the same sentence that Ashley just read, and I can finish the sentence. Down Vine Street Tuesday night because he sought money to buy drugs, police said. Now I've got 22 sentences, 29 words. Okay, that 22 words is 29 words now. And so that's almost double the number of words in which the average reader comprehends meaning. It's 30. That's a lot. All right. So if we want to take something like this and make every word count, let's look at this sentence a little bit. Okay. Because that's what we have to do as writers. Our goal is to maximize efficiency. So when you look at the individual words, armed gunman, okay, that is, someone who is holding a gun. It's a person. It's something tangible. I can see this. Someone's holding a gun. Someone walking down Vine Street, as opposed to running or skipping or hopping or whatever, or jogging. Walking is very different from those things. It's something I can visualize. Money is tangible. It's green or silver if it's coins, but it's something that is tangible, very visual. And the essence of buying drugs, I can visualize, as someone giving another person money and another person giving someone a bag of something, whether it's powder or pills or whatever it might be. Okay. So these are all tangible, very tangible visual words in that sentence. But now I want to look at a couple of other pairs of words. Okay, let's start with this. There was. I want you to think about that. Forget the whole rest of the sentences if you never looked at it before. Just there was. I want someone to tell me what visual image that creates by itself. Nobody? Okay, that's a good thing, because the problem with these words here, these sets of words, is that they don't create any visual image by themselves. Okay, they don't do anything. So I'm always of the essence of, when I'm writing, my core is get rid of words that do nothing and start to recognize words that do nothing in your writing. And unless you have someone who's teaching you how to do that, it's kind of sometimes difficult to understand what that looks like. So let's go back to the original sentence, because when you have do nothing words in your sentence, you're wasting readers' time. And like I said earlier, you're diluting your message. So, first of all, we don't need the armed gunman, okay? Because if you're a gunman, you are armed. So you don't need the word armed. If you're a gunman, that speaks for itself. Okay, and you don't need at gunpoint, because if it's a gun as opposed to a knife or a club or something else, you don't need those words. So all you really need to do is write something like this. A gunman robbed a man on Vine Street Tuesday night because he needed drug money, police said. That's all you need. And so what we've done here is we made room, we cut the original sentence in half, making room to make the same point, but using a lot less words. Okay. And so now, not including the attribution police said, it's 15 words, 17 including the police said. So then you're right there, right at 15. And so this might, make sense to you here, but one of the questions what's important is how do you actually recognize when you're using too many words? Are there any clues that we can look for in our own writing to signal to ourselves that this might be a wordy sentence? Maybe there's a more concise way to write it. And there are clues. And how many of you have ever started a sentence with the words there is, or there are, or there was? I know I've done it lots of times, so it's perfectly fine to be honest. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Natalie raised her hand. Yeah, I have. Okay. I mean, it's what we do. Okay. As writers, these are all forms of the verb to be. All right. The infinitive form of the verb to be. And one of the best clues and most obvious clues that you can have for yourself is recognizing these phrases in your writing. Because when you have these phrases in your writing, it's a signal that your sentence is written in the passive voice, not in the active voice. It's in the passive voice. And the passive voice will always use more words than the active voice, like this. I'm going to show you. All right, now I'm going to ask you to read the first sentence.
In this, do you want me to read that part?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the one in blue.
Oh, okay. there are 3 budgets to present before the deadline that the finance committee set.
Okay, and then the second one?
They must present 3 budgets before the finance committee's deadline.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. So what do you see, any one of you, as the difference in these two sentences and how they're put together, aside from the fact that the one that's active is 10 words and the one that's passive is 14?
Is it because they use, in passive, they use there are instead of they? Is that the difference?
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's one of the signals, okay? When you have a sentence like that starts like this, there are 3 budgets. What it doesn't tell us is who has to do the presenting. Okay, we don't know who's presenting it. Here, we have the word they, but they can be anything. It can be they, it can be he, it could be the Division 1 or the president, or the manager must present 3 budgets, whatever it is. We call this the subject of the sentence, or sometimes we call it the agent. But it's when you think about it in standard English, it has this sentence construction of subject, verb, object. Subject, verb, phrase, object. The manager must present 3 budgets, the verb phrase, before the finance committee's deadline, or to the finance committee. That's fine too. The finance committee being the object of the action, okay, that the subject is taking. And if you could think about that subject, verb, object sentence construction, and making sure that you don't have sentences that start with there are, or there is, or there have always been, or there will be, or, though that's a really important clue to making sure that your sentence is active and it's and that it's concise. All right. So, for example, maybe we can do some of these together. Here you have one sentence and it reads, the reports were submitted by the attorneys and house managers. How would you rewrite this in the active voice? How would you Anyone can call it out. Let's see, Raleigh, you want to give it a shot for us?
Would you just remove the reports and change it to they?
Well, okay, so again, think about it this way. Who in the sentence, who's actually doing the submitting?
Oh, the attorneys and house manager.
Exactly. So here, the way this sentence is set up, the subject is actually at the end of the sentence. We want to move it to the beginning. Subject, verb, object. It always asks who's or what is doing the action. So if you did that, you've got the attorneys and house managers. And what did they do?
Submit the reports.
You're right. Submitted the reports. Okay. So the attorneys and house managers submitted the reports. And that's much shorter. And then another clue for lengthier and wordy sentences is the word by. That word, little teeny word that we always use so much. Just like in this sentence down here, this short one down here, the rally was held by the students. If we wanted to make this in the active voice, how do we do it?
Would you just say like the students held the rally or something?
Exactly like that. The students held the rally. And so now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 words. the students held the rally, you've cut 2 words out of your sentence here. Okay. And that's really what we're talking about. Here we have this other sentence that starts with that to be verb form. There will be, okay, there will be a hiring committee appointed by the business department for the next department chair. Think about which part of this sentence is the subject that's doing the action, and what is the action that's being done. So let's kind of, again, let's work on this one together too. Call it out if you wanted to give it a shot. If not, I'll volunteer someone.
The business department is probably the people. And then they're appointing a hiring committee for the next department chair. Or something
Okay,
like that.
so if we took that and we, right, so the business department, okay, is doing the action. So that is definitely those who are doing the action. We want to bring that to the front of the sentence. So if we started with that, the business department, and what are they doing? Or what will they do?
They're appointing somebody for the next department chair.
Okay, so let's try and read it as a sentence. Okay, let's start out. The business department and you can try typing it out at home, you know, or writing it like a Scratchpad or something.
I would probably say the business department will appoint a hiring committee or something like that. I don't know how I would reword it.
Mhm. Yeah, the business department will appoint a hiring committee for the next department chair. Okay, just like that. Getting rid of the to be verb form and also getting rid of this passive word right here by. Again, so I'll read it again. The business department will appoint a hiring committee for the next department chair. So it's shorter, it's more direct. Again, subject, verb, object. If you think about it, subject, verb, object, and think about getting these to be verb phrases out of your writing, and think about the word by. I mean, typically when you have the word by, it's also a signal that your sentence is probably more wordy than it needs to be. Okay. And so any questions on that? Okay, I'm just going to take you through a couple of more, you know, just a few little things, all right? Like getting rid of wordy phrases like this one, so as to be able to, when all you really need to write is something like this. Instead of 19 words, you can say the same thing in 8. All right, we've taken away 6 words and replaced it with 2. And we see that a lot in, you know, wordy phrases that we're very used to. We don't think about it when we're writing, you know, because you haven't been taught. But in order to, you don't need the word in order. You don't need that at all. Just the word to. And for this set, you know, in reference to and concerning the matter, just use the word about. This comes up a lot in student writing due to the fact that, or the reason for this, the reason for that, when all you really need is because, all right? And at this time, at the present time, just all you need is the word now. And, you know, if you're writing in the present tense, you don't need the word currently. I mentioned that last week in the Zoom session, get the word currently out of your writing. You don't need any of that stuff. So these are just, you know, some ways. And what I did was, you know, here are some redundancies. I'm not going to go, you know, through all of this. But today, earlier this evening, I put this whole PowerPoint slide show in a PDF format in week 1, module week 1 on Canvas. Okay. So you can go and you can kind of take a look at the whole thing, and you'll see that there are other things that you can learn and exercises that you can do. And if you do them, you want to send them to me. Again, I'm really, really busy next week, but I'll eventually go in and I can take a look at your sentences if you want to email me anything and give you some feedback on your sentences. Okay.
I'm seeing some questioning looks on people's faces, so ask your questions. We're here to answer them. None?
Good.
Okay. I'm going to jump in here and share a few things too. I want to talk about some comma craziness because I'm seeing a lot of things regarding comma usage, but there are two other things that I want to talk about before we get there. I want to talk about the word that. The word that, 90% of these words are probably unnecessary. So anytime you see the word that in your writing, go back and double check it, delete it from your sentence, and see if that works just fine. There are a few times that is necessary. But more often than not, you can delete it and the sentence flows even better. The other word is and. I often see two completely separate thoughts put together with the word and. And in media writing, and especially for broadcast writing, you want to use short declarative sentences. So if you see the word and connecting two separate thoughts, that's usually a clue that you should put a period before that and, delete the word and start a new sentence. Okay, so try that out again. Next time you're using the word and to connect separate thoughts, if your sentence is long, David's told us 15 words is the average sentence length. So if you're getting much above that and there's an and connecting thoughts, stop and see if you can write that in two separate sentences. Okay. So those are a couple of things that we want to pay attention to. The next thing, when we're getting into commas, you want to use commas to add clarity. That's the number one reason why you would use a comma. Okay. So if a comma does not add clarity to your sentence, then get rid of it. You probably don't need it. Okay. Here's some rules. I want to just review some rules, and all of these are found in your AP style guide. So if you've got the print version like I do, it's on page 326, or you can search the online version for comma, and there's actually quite a bit there. In the printed version, there is like what 2.5 pages worth of information about commas because they get pretty complex. Okay, so here's some rules that you want to follow. I'm going to just kind of run through them briefly. Commas separate elements in a series or a list of items, but they do not get added before a conjunction. That's AP style. We talked earlier that in MC 130, for those of you who took 130, we talked about the Oxford comma. Okay, and this is what the Oxford comma is. The Oxford comma is that comma before the conjunction. And AP style does not use the Oxford comma. So here's a couple of examples. His grandchildren were Vera, Chuck, and Dave. Okay, no comma after Chuck. Okay, that's AP style, so leave it out there. Another one, I like tacos, donuts, and burgers. Once again, no comma after donuts. I'm really getting hungry. I haven't had dinner yet tonight. So that's one of the rules that the style guide outlines. Okay. Here again, a series. Here's an exception to that rule. The exception is if the last item in your list or your series uses a conjunction to combine two things, then you do use the comma before the conjunction before that item. So it gets a little confusing. Welcome to the English language. Here's the example. I had orange juice, toast, and ham and eggs for breakfast. Ham and eggs is combined to be one entity. And so because it's third in the list, you would put, in this instance, a comma there after toast. You see that comma there? Okay, that's technically correct, but an even better solution would be to reword that sentence and maybe put that list in a different order. So maybe write, I had ham and eggs, orange juice, and toast for breakfast. And then that avoids the problem and it adds clarity. It's a much clearer sentence. Okay, so rephrasing your sentence is sometimes a better option. Here's another rule for commas. Use a comma when separating equal adjectives. So in this example, we're describing a dark, stormy night. Okay, so we would put a comma to separate those two adjectives. They're equal in strength. It could be a stormy, dark night. So they could be in any order and kind of say the same thing. There's where you want to use a comma to separate. And then with quotes, most people are getting these correct, but I'm just going to review it just to be safe here. Commas always before the direct quote. So Biden said, comma, quote, I don't see the budget getting approved before the deadline, period, close quote. This gets to another rule not having to do with commas, but quotes. Punctuation is inside of the quotes. Okay. We do the same thing when attribution comes after the quote. Okay, the movie was fantastic, comma, close quote, she said.
Yeah, never said she, or it's she said, or John said, or Jones, or Smith, or whatever.
Yeah, it's always, yeah. Okay. Another place commas are used is when we're dealing with hometowns and ages. If you're writing obituaries or identifying specific people, you're using these a lot. Oftentimes in an accident, you're near I-70, so there's a lot of people traveling on I-70 that are maybe not even from the state of Kansas. And if someone were to get in an accident and you were writing a story about that, you would identify that individual. And so you would use a comma after the name, Mary Richards, comma, Truckee, Nevada. Or if you had an age in there, if that was appropriate for the story, Brian Smith, comma, Norman, Oklahoma. Okay. So those are other places you would use a comma. And then every once in a while, we'll have a sentence where we'll duplicate a word, just like this example. But the problem is there are too many commas. Sometimes we use that's butted up together. Anytime we're doing that, we place a comma there in between those two, the duplicated word. Okay. And just a couple other rules that I'll cover here. We already talked about this. Comma always goes inside the quotation marks. Okay. And then also check your style guide for numerals, scores, and dates. They also have unique rules for how to use commas within those contexts. I think most of us know that when we're doing numerals, if it's above 1,000, right, it's the comma before the last 3 zeros and every 3 zeros from the counting from the back of the line, right? And then scores and dates also have unique rules. So it's all in your style guide. And I'm not saying that just to get out of explaining more detail, but we really want you to use this style guide. Okay, get in, get familiar with it. It will be a great companion to you for the rest of your college career and even going beyond that into your work career. So get used to using your style guide. Anytime you have a question about whether something is correct or not, go to your style guide and look it up. Just stop and say, okay, thumb through it. And that's one of the reasons why the printed copy is spiral bound. You notice I've got mine folded in half. And it works really nicely because it's spiral bound. Some of you are using the online version, and that's great too. You can search for different terms and they'll pop up. So use your style guide. Understand how to use commas in AP style, because some of them are slightly different, especially when we're talking about the Oxford comma.
And there is just one more demonstration that I want to take you through. But first, are there any questions popping up from after what Tom just showed you? No, we're good. In the instructions that you've been reading, you've read about show versus tell, and I just want to give you a demonstration as to what that means. Share my screen. This is just a sample from the Passion project. Okay, I don't know if it's from this class or from the previous.
It was from an earlier class.
Okay, and so you've got these two paragraphs, and it starts off, my current passion in life is the sport that I play here at Kansas State basketball. All right, and it goes on, and again here you've got the word currently, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is there's a lot of words here. Do the word highlight it, you've got 16 words, when all you really need to write is this: my passion is basketball. 4 little words. Okay. In those writings, now this original one is 145 and the revised version is 113 words. But if whoever was on the Zoom session last week, or if you watched it from last week, and I said on this session, I can take anybody's text and really just whittle it down to minimal words. I just want to show you something here, and show versus tell. So we've got this: my passion's basketball has brought me to play at Kansas State. Though I grew up playing many sports, my heart has always been drawn to basketball. So I've got basketball here, I got basketball here, I got basketball, the next word of the first word of the next sentence. And you're telling me my heart has always been drawn to basketball. This is an example of tell. Okay. And I, we're always profess show. So what I would do is I would actually take this out. Don't tell me that your heart's been in basketball. Show it to me. What do you mean? Though I grew up playing sports, basketball has allowed me to bond with my dad. And then I'm going to even go like this: my best friend. I really want to accentuate that. Okay. He would rebound for me, support me at games, drive me to tournaments, and encourage me to be my best. Well, I understand that, but if you're talking about basketball, something more visual, get rid of that to be verb form, maybe it's play my best. Okay, now I've got something more visual than the word to be. And so I'm making that word count. I'm not taking away a word, I'm replacing it. Okay, creating more visual image for my reader. Okay, and when I jump down here, when I'm on the court, it feels as if all other problems disappear. We get it. We get it. I would write when on the court, when I'm on the court, all other problems seem to disappear. Or for the moment, maybe they do. Okay. And it's just going through your text. You know, I'm sure there's even more that I can do, you know, with this. But it just takes a little bit of time. But these, you know, little things that you can do to tighten up your wording and just be self-critical. Because now that 113 words, okay, is just 100. So I took 13 out of there already. Another 100, you know, so now we're down from 145 to 100. And again, there's more that I can do with this if I really want to, probably bring it down to 90 if I have to. And that's what we're talking about, you know, just being, you know, self-critical, putting more time, you know, into the writing process. I also said this last week. We have a lot of new people here from last week. And that is that I know that when I sit down to write something, you know, the first, you know, from writing something really important, an assignment, no matter what it is, even MC 131 is important. You want to do well. That the first words I put on the page are typically not the words I'm going to keep on the page, or not all of them anyway. And I know that I'm going to end up working it and reworking it and reworking it until I, you know, get it right. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. And I tell this to my MC 200 students, you're not going to master this in one, you know, news assignment that you have to go out and report and write on. It takes practice, but the more that you work with it and the, you know, the more you slow down, and, you know, take your time and think about the words on the page and what are they doing? What are they doing? What does every word do? And is there a way I can take this word and make it a little more visual, replace it with something else, like be with play, for example, to make this stronger? That's how you start to grow. And those are the types of skills, the skill sets that employers and internship coordinators, when you apply for them, want to see. In fact, depending on the job that the type of position that you're applying for, if you're in a communications field, they're going to give you a writing test and they're going to give you an editing test. You're going to have to be able to do this. And so this is a really good place for you to practice this. Another great place to practice it is join the Collegian Media Group, join the Collegian newspaper or the yearbook or the magazine. That gives you lots of opportunity. You work with students who already know how to do these things. And so you get a lot more practice in, so you grow more quickly. So,
David, I think what I hear you saying there is a lot of writing really is editing.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, for those of you who don't know, I've had a TV show on PBS. Okay, and we're actually trying to fund another season of the show. And I just not too long ago had to submit a proposal, okay, a media deck, we call it, for a potential partner. And when you talk about writing as editing, I can sit down, I can write the deck. I went through 37 drafts before I sent it out the door. Okay. And I had 2 experts who I trust to read it and give me the feedback after it was completely done and completely ready for me to send it, hit send. Boop. Before I do that, that's the point when I let two other professionals read it, not when I think, oh, tell me how, I like to get exactly where I know it needs to be. It's 100% polished. No, because I totally trust that if I missed anything, one little typo anywhere, a little period someplace in the page, or they're going to, those two people, they're going to catch it. Okay. Sometimes it's easier to edit other people's work than it is to edit ourselves. And that's because we're attached to the content and we know it and we see it, we can visualize it the way we want to. But sometimes it comes across differently than we actually wanted to. In fact, this happened again today while I'm courting the same potential funder, sending out an email, and I sent the email to my two people who I trust, just 4-line email, and they sent it back with suggestions for making it even better. It's just and again, I never send it to someone, those two people who are going to give me that feedback that I need. Yes, it's great, you're fine, send it, or I caught this, until I'm ready to send it. When I'm just about ready to hit that click button, that's when I do it. That's when I send it. Then I know it's going to be absolutely perfect. So getting other people to help you to read your work helps a lot too. But people who are, I always try to put myself around people who are better than me, people who know more than me, people who are definitely people who are smarter than me, and because that's how I learn, that's how I grow, and not to be so attached to it. Always know there's a better way, and not to get personal, to feel like it's personal and defensive about it. To be open to the constructive criticism. That's the only way you learn.
If you don't have those two people around, or if you're not ready yet to send it to those other people, a good practice is put your writing away, save it, walk away, go have lunch, have coffee with a friend, whatever, take a break from it and get a separation, and then come back and look at it later. And you'll, more often than not, you will notice some errors that need correcting.
Absolutely. That is like a gem of piece of advice right there. Yep.
All right. Any other questions, concerns as you head into these next assignments? Has this been helpful information?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We want to make it worth your time also. So here's a little bonus for you. Send me an email with this in your subject line. Continued craziness creates confusion. There's your clue. Send it off to me in a quick email, and we'll give you some extra points for being here tonight and making it worth your time. Continued craziness creates confusion. This little tongue twister for you, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And we're looking for awesome things from your assignments.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.